नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. So we have been discussing from the fourth verse of Manasiksha, and in that we have been discussing the commentary of His Holiness Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. So we will continue from where we left off, but before that, we will just chant the verse once and then quickly do a recap of what we saw last week, one day, right? Not the whole thing. So we'll chant the verse. Okay. असद्वार्ता वेश्या विसृजमति सर्वस्वहरणी कथा मुक्ति व्याघ्र्या न शृणु किल सर्वात्मकिलनीः अपि त्यक्त्वा लक्ष्मीपतिरतिमितो व्योमनयनीम् व्रजे राधाकृष्णो स्वरतिमणितौ त्वं भजमना. So here, as we saw, from this fourth verse onwards, for the next four verses, 4, 5, 6, 7, these four verses, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami talks about the various obstacles that a sadhaka faces in trying to develop a very steady attraction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The various anarthas, starting from the gross anarthas to more subtler and subtler anarthas, right? So in this verse, he talks about the first three gross anarthas. First, he says asadvarta veshya, right? So like we saw, asadvarta, varta means words. So asadvarta can mean prajalpa or materialistic talks, or varta also means activities, and in that case asadvarta would mean all those activities which enhance asat trishna, or a thirst for engaging in materialistic sense gratification. So in that case we saw asadvarta would mean atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyam cha shadbir bhakti vinashati. All these six activities which enhances one's thirst for material enjoyment all fall within the category of asadvarta, and they should be given up, right? So uh, so this is the first thing, which is compared to a prostitute. So just like a prostitute actually just entices the customer and tries to steal away whatever money he has, in the same way these activities of atyahara prayasascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha laulyam cha, these six kinds of activities, they are very enticing and very attractive, but gradually they steal the sadhaka of all the devotional credits that he has accumulated, right? And then second is kata mukti vyagrya nashrunu kila sarvatmagilani, and all topics of discussion related to mukti is also said to be a female tigress which can gradually steal, take away, um, steal the, it can kill the soul only. It can kill the soul means it will make the soul dysfunctional. The natural constitutional position of the soul is to serve Krishna, and this discussion about mukti katha will actually kill that desire. And then the third thing, which is not exactly an anartha, but it is not very favorable for, um, you can say, attaining the love for Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. So what is that? He says, Apityaktva Lakshmi Patiratim Ito Vyomanayani. He says that you should also give up. He does not say give up worship of Lakshmi Narayan. He says give up attachment to worshipping Lakshmi Narayan, because ultimately if your goal is to attain Goloka Vrindavan, then you should develop attraction to worshipping Radha and Krishna. So this is a very subtle obstacle, but nevertheless it is. Because we don't follow the principle of Yatomat Tatopat. It does not really matter whom you worship. Whomever you worship, you will achieve the same destination. No. Actually, the Shastras say, Yadyad Diyata Urgaya Vibhavayanti Tattat Bahu Pranayase Sadanugrahaya. So Brahmaji says in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that whatever form you worship, aspiring for whatever destination, you will achieve eternal servitude to that form in that abode only. So if you are very clear that my object of worship is Radha and Krishna, and my desired destination is um, Goloka Vrindavan, then our attachment should be to worship the form of Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan only, and not the form of Lakshmi Narayan or any other forms in any other abode, right? So this is the third obstacle that he says. Vraje Radha Krishna Swarati Manidautam Bhajamana. Rather, my dear mind, please develop attachment to serving Radha and Krishna and Vrindavan. And if you worship them, they very easily give you attachment to their lotus feet. So this is what we have been discussing for the last many weeks from this. And we last week we started. We discussed about this second obstacle, as discussed by uh, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj. We spoke about Mukti Katha, how discussing these topics about Mukti are very unfavorable for one's progress. So we will just touch on that topic. I just hold on for a second. Let me just go to that particular section. So yeah, so liberation. So we discussed about Mukti Katha. So what we saw last time was that uh, so he says that these kind of conversations are like a tigress that will devour everything. And then he discussed what is the meaning of Sarva Atma Gilani. So Sarva Atma Gilani means, he says Atma can mean the soul, Atma can mean the mind, and Atma can mean the intelligence, right? So it actually destroys the mind, intelligence, and soul. So to destroy the soul means to destroy the true ego of the soul, which is Jivara Swarupbhai Krishnara Nityadas. That dasatva is destroyed by discussing about mukti, and it will destroy the mind, means it will not allow the spiritual emotions to develop, and it will destroy the intelligence, means it will destroy our pure devotional value system, and rather it will make us into a mukti kami, like that. And then we discussed from this second canto, third chapter, 10th verse, Akama Sarva Kamo Va Moksha Kama Udaratihi Tivrena Bhakti Yogena Yajeta Purusham Param. We discussed on this theme that how Sri Vishnu Thakur explains that actually why is this order of Akama is mentioned first, Moksha Kama is mentioned last, and in between why is Sarva Kama mentioned? Ideally, shouldn't it have been Akama, Moksha Kama, and Sarva Kama? He says actually Moksha Kama is a more absorbing selfishness, whereas Sarva Kama is a less absorbing selfishness. So therefore, one who is absorbed in desires for moksha kama, actually it will be very, very difficult for him to get attracted to bhakti. And that is why we saw last time throughout Bhagavatam, whenever the glorification of the path of bhakti comes, we say that even a muktikami develops attracted to this path, like that. The word api was used, right? Atma ramascha munayo nirgranta api urukrame kurvanti ahaitukim bhaktim ittam bhuta gunokari. Or Shukadev Goswami says, Parinishhtitopi Nairgunya Uttama Shloka Leelaya Grihita Cheta Rajarshe Akyanam Dittavan. He says, Shukadev Goswami says, oh, even I got attracted. Nairgunya Parinishtito Api. Even though I was perfectly fixed in the impersonal Brahman, even I got attracted to the subject matter of Krishna. So glorious is the qualities of Supreme Lord, like that he says. Or even the example of four Kumaras we saw. Sankshobam Akshara Jusham Api Chitta Tango. So even though they were perfectly Akshara Jusham Api, even though they were perfectly fixed in their aspiration for Brahman, and they had attained that Brahman realization also, but still the fragrance that emanated from the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and darshan of the form of the Supreme Lord was so supremely attractive that even those jnanis got attracted, right? So the problem is that because that impersonal liberation in one sense is very attractive. It is the most attractive thing uh, after you can say Vaikuntha. After Vaikuntha or Goloka Vrindavan, the most attractive thing is actually impersonal liberation, right? Because as we saw last time, where did we discuss that? Maybe a little later, right? Okay, anyway, I think we will come back to that. So before that, we saw that. So therefore, muktikam is considered to be much more detrimental than even muktikam. Desire for material enjoyment, right? So, and this is also rejected in Bhagavatam as being kaitava dharma or being false religion, right? And of these four, even Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in Chaitanya Charitamrita says that the desire for liberation is a great deception. Liberation is not, but the desire for liberation is a great deception, because it's a very intensely selfish goal, actually, aspiration. It's a very intensely selfish aspiration, right? So, therefore, our acharyas do not skimp on biting remarks about moksha. For example, Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu calls Mukti Spruha as Pishachi. It is a witch which can steal all our desire to serve Krishna, like that. And when Vallabhacharya also found this verse, we saw the story as last time, that even Vallabhacharya found this. This has to be a little objectionable. How could you call mukti as witch? And then eventually Srila Jiva Goswami clarified that it was not mukti that he was calling as witch, but it was mukti spruha which he called as the witch. Yeah, like that. Like, and then the problem with Muktikamis is that they have had bad experience with respect to this material world, and also they have not developed spiritual emotions, which is more or less similar to what we have also experienced, right? We have had very bad experience with this material world, uh, in this material world, even with respect to relationships, even within the spiritual realm, you know. So even in the spiritual realm, we have probably we have not had very wonderful experiences, so therefore even the prospect of a spiritual relationship is also not very attractive, because our experience of spiritual relationship even in this material world um, has been not so appealing or appetizing, actually. So therefore, we think that uh, uh, you know no relationship is better than any relationship, okay? And that prospect of no relationship is offered by Brahma Jyoti actually, impersonal liberation. And because we have not yet developed spiritual emotions, or maybe we have not even come close to experiencing something called spiritual emotions, so actually spiritual emotions is not very attractive to us. So therefore, if Brahma Jyoti is presented as it is, right? Actually, there are no material miseries. There is no material relationships, especially the servant master relationship is not there, and you don't have to come back from Brahma Jyoti. So therefore, if it is presented as it is, then actually it is very attractive. Therefore, in our parampara, if you see, our acharyas have constantly engaged in deglamorizing this impersonal liberation, because uh, it has to be deglamorized till um, the devotees develop some attraction towards the spiritual relationships that is available in Goloka Vrindavan and Vaikuntha, right? So therefore, Prabhupada had his own way of deglamorizing. So, what would Prabhupada say? Prabhupada almost never emphasized on Brahma Jyoti having no material miseries, right? So, Prabhupada, actually, at least I don't remember Prabhupada ever glorifying Brahma Jyoti as being, oh, there are no material miseries in Brahma Jyoti. Even though this is true, but Prabhupada never talks about it. Nor do most of the other acharyas also speak about it. Okay, and the second aspect, uh, you don't have to have any material relationships. This is presented actually as a disadvantage. Oh, there is no, or rather, or other at other times it is not emphasized at all. And the third aspect is that you don't have to come back, and Prabhupada actually flips this whole thing and he says, actually, you have to come back. But in reality, as I mentioned last time, uh, this is not exactly mentioned in the Shastras. So, the Shastras actually don't talk about Brahmajyoti being a temporary place. Rather, I can give you so many examples. Actually, it just slipped off my mind. Actually, I wanted to collect those verses where the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita themselves say that actually Brahmajyoti is an eternal place. One who goes there, they don't want to come back. But if you can maintain little patience, let me just search for it, and I will just read it for you, because, and then we will start discussing why Prabhupada actually says like that, right? Actually, we did touch this topic last time, but I just wanted to um, uh, uh, just discuss this little more in detail. So many places, few things I have at the top of my head, but still I will have to search it in the folio. I'm just searching it. Just hold on. Okay. Now, this is third canto, 27th chapter, 28th and 29th verse, right? I'm giving you the reference, and I'm going to now show you. I'm going to read Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti's explanation of this. Of course, Prabhupada's explanation is slightly different. We will touch that also. I'm going to just zoom it, and then I'm going to share the screen with you. So just hold on. Okay. So this is 3.27.2829. So this talks about liberation of a Jnana Yogi, because the whole chapter is about Jnana Yoga. Okay. Madbhakta Pratibuddharto Mad Prasadena Bhuyasa Nishreyasam Swasamsthanam Kaivalyakyam Madashrayam Prapnotiha Anjasa Dhiraha Swadrisha Chinna Samshayah Yad gatvana nivarteta yogi lingat vinirgame. Right. So this is the verse. I am going to read Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti's explanation of this verse. Oh, just hold on. Okay. So Vishwanath Chakravarti, in his translation, he says, when a sage engages for many lifetimes in meditation on Atma with complete detachment from everything in all the worlds, including Brahmaloka, and becomes my devotee, understanding the ultimate truth, by my bountiful mercy, he easily attains the highest benefit, his Swarupa called Brahman, which is under my shelter. So Brahman cannot refer to the Lord himself, because in that case, then he will not say that I am under my own shelter. Right. So here he says Brahman, um, having attained that position, having cut all doubt by his knowledge of Atma, and having destroyed the subtle body, the steady yogi does not return. You see, having attained the Brahman, he says the steady yogi does not return. Right. So, Swasamsthanam, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti explaining this verse, he says, Swasamsthanam means the Swarupa beyond the material body called Brahman. I am the shelter of that Brahman, for it is said, Brahmano hi pratishta aham. When the subtle body is destroyed and doubts are cut by knowledge of the pure Atma, the yogi does not return. Right? So this is one from Bhagavatam. There are others I am not able to immediately recollect, but I will share it with you some other time. And from Bhagavad Gita also, huh? Just hold on, let me search in Bhagavad Gita. Also, there is one or two places where I remember uh, mentioning, discussing this. Okay. Okay, just hold on if I can just search. Just give me just 1 minute. I will just search for it. I think it is. Yeah, give me 1 second. Because I knew this would be a question that would come up, so I just thought I will spend some time. Yeah, yeah, I got it. One more verse from Bhagavatam I will show you, and then Bhagavad Gita also I will show you. So this is 2.2.31. Okay, let me open 2.2.31. This comes in the Kramamukti section of the second canto. So yeah, I am going to read the verse and its translation. Okay, so here Srila Shukadeva Goswami says, तेनात्मनात्मानम् उपैति शान्तम् आनन्दम् आनन्दमयो अवसाने एतां गतिं भागवतीं गतो यः स वै पुनर्नेह विसज्जते अंगा. So the explanation by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, he says, O king, he merges his Swarupa along with Pradhan into the blissful unchanging form of Mahavishnu. With that termination, he remains blissful. He who has attained this goal does not return to this material world. Okay. So now, actually, uh, he merges into the Lord, means he merges into Brahman only, because this is talking about a yogi, and uh, and it is mentioned before only that such a person eventually wants to merge into the impersonal Brahmajyoti only. So what is mentioned as Mahavishnu here is the bodily effulgence of Mahavishnu. I'll just tell you where it is mentioned. It is mentioned before only. I'll show this to you. And then again in Bhagavad Gita, there is a section where it is mentioned. This is 8th chapter, 24th verse. Okay, so this is talking about Agnir Jyotir Ahashukla Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vidojana. So this is talking about the path of a yogi who does not come back. If you remember in the 8th chapter, he talks about two paths, the path of light and the path of smoke, Dhumadi Marga and Archiradi Marga. So the path of light, when the yogi takes, he does not come back. And what is the destination of that yogi? It is Brahmajyoti only. So he says that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti translating this verse, he says, the knowers of Brahman who depart on the path of fire and light, the waxing fortnight, and the northern progress of the sun, they attain Brahman. Right? So they attain Brahman. And then Baldevidya Bhushan also says, the knowers of Brahman who depart on the path of fire and light, the waxing fortnight, and the northern progress of the sun attain Brahman. And if you remember, such people, because Krishna started this discussion by telling Yatra kale tu anavrittim avrittim chaiva yogina prayata yanti tam kalam vakshami Bharata Rishabha. He says, O best of Bharata's lineage, I will now explain about the path by which the yogis return and do not return. Okay, so that yogi who is aiming for achieving Brahman, he does not return. And that yogi who aims to attain the, you know, who, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, the screen was not visible. I'm really sorry. I'll just show you the screen. So here, this is the this is 8.24, where Agnir Jyoti Rahas Shukla Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vidojana. So this verse indicates the path that the yogi takes by which he comes back, right? By which he comes back, by which he does not come back, right? So he says, the knowers of Brahman who depart on the path of fire and light, the waxing fortnight and the northern progress of the sun, they attain Brahman. And in the previous verse, Krishna says, O best of Bharata, I will now explain about the paths by which the yogis return or do not return. So the path by which the yogis do not return is this, are those Brahman aspiring yogis. That's why they are called as Brahma Brahma Vidojana, right? And that path by which the yogis return, they are aspiring after Swarga and other such material benefits. So those yogis, they do return. So therefore, if you see, the point that I'm trying to make is that the Shastras in Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, you will never ever see any verse where the where it is mentioned that people who go to Brahman come back. I mean, this might be shocking to most of you. It was quite shocking to me also the first time I read these things. But the very fact is that Brahman being a very a spiritual destination, people who go there, they generally do not come back. And I personally asked this question to His Holiness Bhanuswami Maharaj also when he had come to GV, and he did clarify this point. So therefore, you will never find any verse in Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita where it is mentioned that those who attain Brahman come back, right? So now, the only verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes, the only verse that Srila Prabhupada quotes to establish this point is this. is the verse Yenya Aravindaksha Vimukta Manina. So he talks about Ye Anye Aravindaksha Yenya Aravind. I'm sorry. This is creating some issues. Okay. Okay. Just let me share the screen. Okay. The PowerPoint just stopped. So today somehow the PowerPoint has been creating a lot of issues for me. Just wait for a second. I will just. So we have been discussing about about what does Prabhupada quote to substantiate that those who attain Brahmajyoti come back. So this is what we were discussing. Why is this not showing? I want to share the screen, but this is not showing me. Yeah. Okay. So the verse that Prabhupada quotes is this famous verse from the 10th canto. Yenye Aravindaksha Vimukta Maninas Tvai Asta Bhavat Avishuddha Buddhaya Aruhya Krichrena Param Padam Tataha Patanti Adho Anadrita Yushmad Angarayaha. Right? This is the verse, and this verse is quoted many times by Srila Prabhupada in his purports, and this verse comes many times in the explanations in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. But the point is that Prabhupada gives many different translations to this verse and explanations to this verse, right? So the first point that I want you to note is that the verse itself says that they are vimukta maninaha. Maninaha means they only consider themselves to be liberated. Okay, but they are not really liberated. And other acharyas say they reach till the position of Jivan Mukta. Jivan Mukta means they don't merge in the impersonal Brahmajyoti, but while living in that gross body, they are liberated. But Tvai Asta Bhavad Avishuddha Buddhaya, because of their improper intelligence, they reject the personal form of the Lord. So therefore, Aruhya Krichrena Param Padam. So with great difficulty, Krichrena, Aruhya, they climb to higher and higher position. And the Acharyas say, what is this Param Padam? The Acharyas say, they may at the most become a Jivan Mukta. But patantyado, but they fall down from the position of Jivan Mukta. Okay, they don't actually become a mukta, a perfected. They don't become a perfected. You can say like a liberated soul, even merging into the Brahma Jyoti. Why? Because it is anadrita yushmat angre. Because they are disrespectful towards the lotus feet of Krishna. So now my question is, if they are disrespectful to the lotus feet of Krishna, then how would Krishna allow them to attain a spiritual destination of the Brahma Jyoti? Right? So this is not possible. So therefore, and I will give you one more proof for this. I am going to go to 6th canto, 17th chapter, where this is 6th canto, 14th chapter, 5th verse. I am going to just open that this thing, and we are going to read the explanation of that particular verse by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Just to throw some more light on this particular verse. What is this Aruhya Krichrena Param Padam Tataha? Just to get an idea of this. 6th canto, 14th chapter. I will just share the screen in a moment with you. 5th verse. Okay. So, yeah. So, here, yeah. So, this is the verse. Muktanam api siddhanam Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha Prashantatma Kotishwapi Mahamune. Right? So here he says, O great sage, Muktanam api Siddhanam. So he says, Muktanam api Siddhanam. There is a Mukta, there is a Siddha. Greater than those who are Jivan Mukta and greater than those who attain liberation. So here the word Mukta is used to indicate a Jivan Mukta, who is still staying in his very same material body only, right? But internally he is liberated. He is not attached to this material body. But he has not merged in the Brahma Jyoti, right? Siddhanam. So a Siddha is said to be one who has attained liberation. So greater than those is a Narayana Parayana, a devotee of Lord Narayana, right? And so on. So now we will very carefully read this purport. I want you to pay attention here, because a very important point, because this will become the crux of our discussion, what we have been discussing, right? So it has been said that among the liberated one may attain perfection. Many perform sadhana for liberation, right? Many perform sadhana for liberation, but they do not attain liberation. Okay, so but those who become liberated, that is when they become Jivan Mukta, do not at all become perfect. Only some do, right? So there are three categories now we have seen, right? Jnana sadhakas, right? Then the higher stage is Jivan Muktas. Then the third stage is Siddhas. Siddhas mean they have attained Brahma Jyoti. Okay, so these are the three categories of people. Not all Jnana Sadhakas become Jivan Muktas, and not all Jivan Muktas become Siddhas. Only some do, for it is said. Why? He says, Jivan Mukta api punar bandhanam yati karma bihi yadya chinta mahashakto bhagavati aparadina. So this verse is from a book called Vasana Bhashya, right? So where it is mentioned, that the Jivan Muktas again become bound by karma if they commit offense to the Lord. You see here, offense to the Lord. This is called as Anadrita Yushmadangraya. Right? This is what is called as Anadrita Yushmadangraya. Right? So, those who attain perfection and get liberation attain Sayuja, they merge in the Brahman. So that's what we saw here, right? The Siddhas, they attain Brahma Jyoti, but the Jivan Muktas, not yet. And if they commit offense to the Lord, they can never attain, right? The devotee of Narayana is rarer than those liberated persons, right? So now, compared to the Jivan Muktas and the liberated person, the devotee of Narayana is rare because of his superiority. So Jivan Mukta means he is still living in the same body. Or one can consider this in another way. So now the real discussion starts. Please carefully listen here. Okay. So Srila Vishwanath Thakur says there are two types of jnana. That which is pure and that which is mixed with bhakti. Right. So pure jnana means no bhakti. And such a practice will not give any result. So he says by pure jnana, those who desire liberation cannot achieve it. It is like beating empty husks for grain, right? So you know this verse. This is famous verse from the 10th canto, Brahmaji's prayers. Shreyas sritim bhakti mudasyate vibo, klishyantiye kevala bodha labdaye, tesha masau kleshala eva shishyate, nanyadyata stula tushava. So this verse says, if your practice of jnana has no element of bhakti, then how much ever you practice, it is like beating empty husks. The greater you beat, the more you will feel tired and your hands will start paining, but no rice will come out of a husk, uh, you know, will come out of that paddy from which the grains have already been removed, right? So this is one category. Then uh, this is mukti. This is jnana without any element of bhakti. Then the second type we saw, jnana mixed with bhakti. This has two types. What are the two types? He says, with bhakti in which one does not respect the Lord's form, considering his form to be material, right? So one who does not accept the personal form of the Lord to be a spiritual form. So accepting that it is material, he performs some kind of bhakti, but it is not, in reality, it is not bhakti. Because without accepting the personal form of the Lord, there is no meaning to performance of bhakti. But he himself, he is not outright atheistic, but he thinks for some reason or other, he thinks the form of the Lord to be material, right? And the second type of this thing is that one who performs jnana with some bhakti in which one respects the Lord's form and not considering it to be material. So by the first type of jnana mixed with bhakti, one will not attain liberation. You see, I want you to note this very clearly. By the first type of jnana mixed with bhakti, one will not attain liberation, but one will think one is liberated, right? Such bhakti destroys ignorance completely, but only partly produces knowledge and then disappears, right? Why? And the practitioner thinks bhakti must be discarded for attaining liberation. And such a person is here, mentioned here. Yenye ravindaksha vimukta maninas tvayastabhavat avishuddha buddhaya. Aruhya krichrena param padam tatah patantyado anadrita yushmadangrayah. You see here, he says, by the first type of jnana mixed with bhakti, one will not attain liberation, but one will think one is liberated. So, for not attaining liberation, he is quoting this verse, Yenya Ravindaksha Vimukta Manina. So, and Aruhya Krichrena Parampadam, they attain till Jivan Mukta. They can become a Jivan Mukta, but because they are Anadrita Yushmadangraya, they will not attain actual mukti. They will not enter into Brahma Jyoti. It is not possible to enter into Brahma Jyoti with that kind of a attitude. And he quotes some verses from Bhagavad Gita also to establish this point. So these are the people. Avajananti mamuda manushim tanumashritam parambhava majananto mamabhuta maheshwaram. So when Krishna says, whenever I appear in the form of a human being, people not knowing the real truth about me, they deride my personal form to be material, right? Then what happens to such people? Mogasha moga karmano moga jnana vichetasah rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shrita. So such people, their endeavors to attain perfection in jnana, karma, bhakti, everything will be foiled. You know, they won't attain their goal of mukti for a jnani, bhukti for a karmi, or bhakti for a bhakta, right? So therefore, um, and the other type of jnani, he attains impersonal liberation. Yeah? Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kamshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatvatah tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. Right? So such people, they actually attain Sahajya Mukti, and such people don't come back. So now I will just summarize, because we have covered some material here. I will just for your um, yeah, I will just add one more slide here. Okay, and I will share this slide. So basically, the Gyanis are of two types. Okay, so one who practices pure Jnana without bhakti, and the second type of Gyanis are those who practice Jnana mixed with bhakti. Okay, so the destination of such people is no result, right? It is like beating empty husk, right? And those who practice Jnana plus Bhakti, he said there are two types. One who accept Lord's form to be material, and one who accepts Lord's form to be spiritual. Okay, so one who accepts the Lord's form to be material, he says he can at the most become a Jivan Mukta, but cannot attain Brahma Jyoti. Okay, and the verse that describes such a person is Yenya Ravindaksha, right? And one who accepts the Lord's form to be spiritual and worships that form and does not disrespect that form, such a person is, he attains Brahma Jyoti. Okay, and such a person is described by the verse Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma and Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Right? So the point is that Prabhupada often quotes this verse to say that people fall down from Brahma Jyoti, but in reality, this verse indicates the position of a Jivan Mukta only. Okay, so considering, if you see why Prabhupada does this, so this is not unusual in our parampara, right? So this is very much common. You know, like we saw the example of Srinivasa Acharya, right? So um, he calls the six Goswamis, one of their mission statement. So one of their mission statement, he says, is Kaivalya Nistarakau. And Prabhupada translates this as they want to deliver the people from the jaws of liberation, from the jaws of impersonal liberation. As if impersonal liberation is like a big shark which has come to devour all living entities. Yes, it is. Because if one gets attracted by this impersonal liberation, then there is no chance for such a person to get attracted to uh, devotional service, right? And then again, if you see Prabodhananda Saraswati, so Prabodhananda Saraswati also says, Kaivalyam Narakayate. Okay, so he does not literally mean that Kaivalya Mukti or Kaivalya or impersonal liberation is hell. It is not hell, but for a person who values service to Krishna, it is as good as hell, because there is no scope for serving Krishna in, or there is very, very little scope for serving Krishna in hell, right? So now, so therefore, if you see, Prabhupada, um, Prabhupada has his own way of doing it, and Prabhupada plays the temporary card. Even though the nature of Brahmajyoti is that one who goes there does not come back. Prabhupada says you come back, right? Because as a living entity, as an eternal spirit soul, we want everything eternally. So the most discouraging thing for a living entity is to know that you can enjoy something very valuable only temporarily. So that can be the most discouraging thing for any living entity. So Prabhupada plays that card, that it is temporary. But in reality, it is not temporary. But the point is, yena kena prakarena, somehow or other you have to discourage the living entity. Because if he finds it very attractive and goes there, then one who develops an attachment for that kind of Sahajya Mukti, for him to turn back and get attracted to Bhakti is next to impossible. Right? So Prabhupada does that. But in reality, if you see, there are so many verses. Maybe if someone raises this point, then we will go to that section and see in Bhagavatam where all people have rejected Mukti, and we will see, has anyone ever rejected Sahajya Mukti because it is temporary, right? So we will see that, because Rupa Goswami himself has given a series of verses in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu where the characters of Bhagavatam are rejecting Mukti, but interestingly, none of them reject Sahajya Mukti because it is temporary. So, yeah, if this point comes again, then maybe go to Bhagavatam, or we'll go to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and see those series of verses and try to understand what it says. But as of now, let's just move ahead and then finish the next couple of slides, and then I will pause for some discussion. So what is this mukti kam, right? The mukti kam is the desire to go back so that I don't have to suffer, right? I don't want to suffer in this material world, so therefore I want to go back. Uh, uh, and then what is not mukti kam? Hmm? So if I desire to go back to the spiritual world so that I have only devotees association, or if I want to go back to the spiritual world so that my consciousness will be protected. So if one has a serious desire to protect one's consciousness or to always stay in the association of devotees, and for that reason, if one wants to attain mukti, that is not desire for mukti, that is actually desire for bhakti. That is not considered as mukti kam. So then Maharaj spoke that he met a psychologist, professional psychologist, who said that most devotees have mukti kam, and then we did discuss about it. That mukti kam must not have been the most cherished desire, but as an anartha, the desire to escape suffering is there in everyone. But we don't cherish it as the most valuable desire. Of course, that is to please Krishna only. But in doing that, whenever we are troubled by adhyatmic, adibhautik, adidaivik kleshas, uh, we do get disappointed. So, but that is not exactly mukti kam, but that is the desire for mukti, which is present in the form of an anartha rather than an abhilasha, right? And he says, how can you detect mukti kam? Hmm? So, how to detect mukti kam? Right? So he gives a very simple litmus test. Uh, Litmus test for identifying muktikam, either as an abhilasha or anartha. Uh, So how do you identify? He says, if someone says, hey, but he's a devotee, how come he is suffering? Hmm? So devotee should not suffer, na? Which means there is a chance that we have accepted devotional service because we don't want to suffer in this material world. So that is a litmus test. Otherwise, a very mature devotee will see uh, uh, the suffering as a facilitation by Krishna. At least theoretically, he will accept. Tattenu kampam samikshamano bunjana evatmakatam vipakam kridvag vapurbir vidadan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadaya bhak. Right. So, when a person strives for mukti, Raghunath Das Goswami says that this desire devours everything. Right? People lose not only their intelligence, but ultimately they develop a desire to become a nobody or to turn into a non-entity. So he says that this is Mayavad. People want to give up their real mm, individuality, right? And they want to become God. Maharaj says, at one time I read many Mayavad books, but they are all nonsense. But they sound very beautiful and poetic. So ultimately, this talk of mukti deprives us of our true selves, which is uh, uh, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi Kriyatam Yadi Kutopi Labhyate Tatra Laulyam Api Mulyamekalam Janma Koti Sukratairna Labhyate. The most valuable commodity that we have is Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavita Matihi. uh, a consciousness which is deeply yearning to serve Krishna and please Krishna. Kriyatam api kutopi labhyate. If you can buy it, if it is available in the market, you pay anything and buy it, or buy it by hook or crook. Huh? Tatra laulyam api mulyamekalam. But in order to purchase it, the 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 currency is laulyam, your deep greed to purchase it. Janma koti sukritam labhyate. Whatever amount of pious credits you attain, you cannot attain that kind of laulyam. So somehow or other, you develop that laulyam and purchase this Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitam, like that. So this is a brief recap of what we saw last time. And but of course, I have added some additional details also to what we discussed last time. So before we move on to the next theme, which is Api Tyakva Lakshmi Patiratim Mito Vyomanayani. Be very careful and ensure that you get attached to only Radha and Krishna and not any other forms of their lordships, because instead of landing up in Goloka Vrindavan, you may land up in some other place like Vaikuntha. So, but before we go to that discussion, if there are any quick comments, questions, discussions, objections, uh, reflections that you might want to share, questions, you can please raise your hands. I see two hands already. Radha Bhavini Mataji, I am unmuting you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danda Pranam. Am I audible, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes.
Prabhuji, one of our devotees who is attending the Zoom, Radha Sevika Mataji, had this question. Prior to your starting this today's revision, Mataji had asked me to ask this question on her behalf. The question is, Jiva by nature is very active. In Brahmajyoti, there is no activity. How long does it stay? If it does not come back, where does it go?
Okay, good point. Okay, where does it say that the Jiva by nature is very active? Where is it mentioned? Would someone like to answer? You can please raise your hands. Where is it mentioned that a Jiva by nature is very active? Anyone would like to answer? This is a very common statement that a Jiva by nature is very active. So how can he stay inactive in Brahmajyoti? That is the question. Can someone share where in Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam does it say that the Jiva is active? So one answer is in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says to Arjuna. Of course, in Bhagavad Gita, everything Krishna only tells to Arjuna. So, I mean, what does he say? Okay, Govinda Ghosh Prabhu, I am lowering your hand. I am unmuting you. Can please answer.
Krishna, in 3rd chapter, 5th, 6th number shloka, Krishna says that even by mind, when someone is always active.
Yeah.
Is it that?
Yes. Okay. Good. Thank you. So he says, Nahi kaschit shanamapi jatu tishtati akarmakrit. कार्यते हि अवशः कर्म सर्व प्रकृतिजैर गुणैः. Right. So here I will line by line I will translate it for you. Nahi kaschit shanam api means not even for a moment. Jatu tishtati akarmakrit. The jiva can remain inactive. Okay. Why? And which jiva is this? We have to see. Karyate hi avashah karma. He will helplessly be pushed to act. Now the question is, who is going to push? Sarva Prakriti Jair Gunaihi. By the gunas born out of Prakriti. Right? By the gunas born out of Prakriti. So, by the Sattva gun, Rajogun, Tamogunas, which are present in the form of Vasanas, here the Jiva is the conditioned Jiva. So the conditioned Jiva cannot remain inactive even for a moment because the presence of Sattvagun, Rajogun and Tamogun in the form of Vasanas will push him to act helplessly. Now, in a liberated soul who has no material Vasanas, why would he be pushed to act? What is that stimulus for a living entity who is in Brahma Jyoti? What is going to stimulate him to act? Because generally people quote this verse only. Naikascha Chanamapi, Naikascha Chanamapi. They don't speak the rest of the verse. They speak only the first line. Naikascha Chanamapi Jatu Chishtata Karmakrit. Bhagavad Gita says that the soul can never remain inactive even for a moment. But Bhagavad Gita does not say that. Bhagavad Gita says the conditioned soul cannot remain inactive even for a moment in this material world because he will be pushed to act helplessly by the material gunas which are present in the form of vasanas. That is why. Otherwise, the soul itself, right? So the soul can act under two circumstances, right? The soul, when he is in touch with material vasanas, plus a false ego, engages in material activities. Sorry. Activities. Whereas the soul, when in touch with spiritual vasanas, plus true ego, engages in spiritual activities. Right? So this is the situation of a living entity in the material world. And this is the situation of a living entity in the spiritual world. Okay. Now, what is the position of a living entity in Brahma Jyoti? Okay. So, when a living entity has no vasanas plus an incompletely developed true ego, right? So he knows that he is not the body, he is a spirit soul, but he has not developed a complete understanding of Jivera Swarupa Krishna Nityadas. And because he has not performed any pure devotional activities to develop spiritual vasanas, so he is left with no action. Right? So this is the position of a living entity in Brahmajyoti. So action for a soul is triggered by vasanas. It should be either material vasanas or spiritual vasanas. Okay, and either by a false ego or true ego. But an incompletely developed true ego with no vasanas will lead to no action, and that is the situation in Brahmajyoti. So therefore, to say that the soul itself can under no circumstances remain inactive is not complete understanding. And another devotee is quoting here, Sharirastopi kaunteya na karoti na lipyate. Yeah. So that is the position of a liberated soul. Very nice, Mataji. Thank you very much for sharing this verse. So even though a liberated soul stays in the material world, he does not act because there are no material vasanas in him which are triggering him. So therefore, the answer to your question is that to say that the living entity under no circumstances can remain inactive is improper understanding. It is not a complete understanding. Actually. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
I think Mataji will not be able to unmute herself. So I think she was heard this.
I was asking you only. Yeah, I mean, could you relate to the answer? Radha Bhavini Mataji, could you relate to the answer?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. Now I will unmute her also.
Yes.
And Radha Sevika Mataji, I am unmuting you. You can please share it. It was relevant. Hare Krishna. Mataji, as always, I think you are having internet issues. We are not able to hear you clearly. You can just type in the chat box, Mataji. We are not able to hear you.
Hi, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear that you are talking something, but
Hi,
it's not very clear, Mataji.
Yes, okay, Prabhu. It's okay. I'll write it down.
Yeah, just please type it in the chat box. Okay, I have heard another connected question. How can the soul have no vasanas? Yeah, why not? If by practice of Nishkama Karma Yoga, it cleanses the heart of all material vasanas, and subsequently, if no, in order to write spiritual vasanas, you need to have you need to practice bhakti, pure devotional service. So if one does not practice pure devotional service, and at the same time by practice of Nishkama Karma Yoga, if one has cleansed one's heart, then one reaches the stage of Jnana Yoga. And because Jnana Yoga also cannot generate spiritual vasanas, therefore the living entity wants the only attractive proposal to that living entity is to merge in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Okay. So, Madhavi Gopi Mataji, I am unmuting you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji.
Prabhuji, before going to my doubt regarding this, what we discussed about the Mataji's question, I have one doubt. Like you explained very well that the soul who goes to Brahma Jyoti has no vasana and incompletely developed through the ego. But I'm confused.
Your voice is breaking.
Hare Krishna, can you hear?
Yeah, go ahead. We could hear. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm not understanding is we hear all the time that those demons and which are killed by Krishna himself, they go to Brahma Jyoti, they attend Sayujya Mukti. So those are the demons when just prior to their death, they are full of vasanas and even negative vasanas which are against the Lord. And then how in a moment they turn to a being of no vasanas, like.
Yeah, this is very nice question. You asked a very relevant question. So I will explain the question again for those of you who have not understood this question. Here, Mataji is asking, we do hear in the Shastras that some of the demons killed by Krishna, they go to Brahma Jyoti. So being demons, they are filled with lot of material vasanas. So how is it that that they could merge into Brahma Jyoti with so much material vasanas, because Brahmajyoti is said to be a place where there are no material vasanas? This is a very beautiful question, and the answer to this question is given by Narada Muni. The answer to this question is given by Narada Muni in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I am receiving lot of questions from the chat box. I will take those questions, but first I will answer this question. So, so is that Kamad, Dveshad, Bhayat, Krodhat, Yata Bhakteshware Manaha? Yeah, that is the verse. So he says, Krishna says, Kamad, Dveshad, Bhayat, Krodhat, Yata Bhakteshware Manaha, Aveshya Tad Agham Hitva Bahavas Tad Gatim Gataha. This is the verse. This comes in the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So where Narada Muni is speaking to Yudhishthir Maharaj, he says, Kamad, by conjugal love, just like the gopis had for Krishna. Dveshad, like Shishupal. Bhayat, like Kamsa. Kamad, Dveshad, Bhayat, Krodhat, by anger, by many other inimical things. Yata Bhaktya Ishvare Manaha. Just as devotees can engage their mind in Krishna, similarly the gopis by Kama, Shishupal by Dvesha, Kamsa by Bhaya, and so on, when they completely absorb their mind in Krishna, Avesha, you see here, Tad Agham Hitva. So what does Krishna do? Krishna, in those category of people, Kama, Dveshat, Bhayat, Snehat, sorry, it should be Sneha, right? So Sneha are the Pandavas. So he says, Tad Agam Hitva means after removing the impurities. Right? Bahavas Tadgatim Gataha. Many have attained liberation. This is what Narada Muni is telling. So the Acharyas say, how could this Dvesha and Bhaya category of people attain impersonal liberation? He says, that is why here Narada Muni says, Tad Agham Hitva. Krishna gives them the benefit of doubt for so intensely being absorbed on Krishna. So the reward for that intense absorption in Krishna, even though in a very, very severely unfavorable way, the benefit that they get is Krishna purifies their heart of all material vasanas. So, Bahavas Tat Avesha Tat Agam Hitva Bahavas Tat Tatim Gata. Like that. Is that relevant, Mataji?
Yes, Prabhuji. I was thinking that Krishna can do anything, so he can do this also. So you explained it very nicely.
Yeah.
And
But
Prabhuji, can I ask?
Krishna does it only because they were so intensely absorbed on Krishna that there was no scope for thinking about anything else. So only to such people. That is why to Vena and other such people, even though they were inimical towards Krishna, Vena went to hell. Shishupal went to Sayuja Mukti. Shishupal attained Sayuja Mukti, but Vena went to hell. This was the question asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Katamopina Vena Syad. How is it that Vena achieved a hell? Shishupal attained Brahmajyoti. What is this? Both hated. In fact, Shishupal hated Krishna more. Vena did not hate Krishna so much. Says, yeah, that was the problem. Vena was self-absorbed, and because Krishna was an obstacle for his self-absorption, Vena hated Krishna. But Shishupal hated Krishna so much that there was not even a nanometer of space in his mind which was not thinking of Krishna. Every inch of space within his mind was thinking of Krishna. Krishna wanted to reward Shishupal for that. And similarly, Kamsa through Bhaya. So otherwise, just by therefore, not all atheists will achieve Brahmajyoti. You have to be so absorbed that constantly you are thinking of Krishna. So such people believed in the existence of Krishna, right? So therefore they hated Krishna. So such people, they will attain Brahmajyoti. Not all demons will attain Brahmajyoti, right? Like that. Is that okay, Mithil?
I just wanted to make a point, like I was trying to relate that when Krishna wants to distribute his causeless mercy, like we have discussed some lectures back, that how Mahaprabhu gave mercy to Narayani and she exhibited pure devotional symptoms in spite of being a child that time. So
Yeah.
similarly, Krishna wants to remove the impurities of anyone out of his causeless mercy. He can do it
He
anytime. Like,
he can do, but I want to Srila Baldev
yeah, but
Bhushan is yeah,
that's
but
right.
Srila Baldev Bhushan in his Gita commentary resolves this issue also. He says there are two categories of demons, right? There are two categories of demons. The first category of demons are those who are demons by nature. And the second category of demons are those who are demons because of curse. They are not demoniac by nature, right? So those who are demons by nature, which means they have a natural tendency to hate Krishna. So such kind of demons are never killed by Krishna and sent to Brahmajyoti, right? So such kind of demons, Krishna says, Tanaham Dvishata Kruran Samsareshu Naradaman Kshipami Ajastram Ashubhan Asuri Shveva Yonishu Asurim Yonimapanna Muda Janmani Janmani Mam Aprapyeva Kaunteya Tato Yanti Adamam Gatim. So Krishna tells in the 16th chapter that Tanaham Dvishata Kruran. So for those kind of demons who hate me and um, and who are the lowest of mankind, to such people he says, Kshipami Ajasram Ashubhan Asuri Shvevayonishu. I eternally cast them into demoniac species, he says. And then he says, Kshipami Ajasram Ashubhan Asuri Shvevayonishu. Asurim Yoni Mapanna Moda Janmani Janmani Mama Prapya Kaunteya. Such people, Krishna very clearly says, such people attaining this demoniac species, they never attain, right? So therefore, such demons who are by nature hateful of Krishna, they don't attain Krishna, they don't attain Brahmajyoti. Krishna does not kill such people. Krishna does not bother to kill such people. But there are others who are not by nature demons, but they are demons. They are by nature, they have a divine nature only, but because of some mistake, they were cursed to become demons. And therefore, if you see in Garga Samhita, it talks about all the demons which Krishna killed. There is a past and how they became demons due to some curse or other, right? So such people were not demoniac by nature; they were actually divine by nature. But because they made a mistake, they were cursed to become demons. So therefore, it would be inappropriate for them to remain demons and never and always become atheistic, because that was not their nature at all. So this is a clarification that Srila Baldev Bhushan gives in commentary to this two verses, Tanaham Dishata Puran from the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So therefore, in one sense, Krishna is not actually uh, um, Krishna is not actually interfering with their free will also, because they are not by nature demons. Is that okay, Mati?
Yes, Prabhuji, you explained it very, very, very nice. Prabhuji, can I ask the original question which I had, which is not related to what Mataji had asked?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
if there are related questions to this on the in the chat box, I will ask.
Yeah. There are some related questions, but you can stay unmuted. I will take some related
Yeah,
questions in the chat box, and then you can continue asking.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
So there is one question. Uh, is that a person reach Brahmajyoti will not have any possibility to go back home back to Godhead? Is there no possibility of a person in Brahmajyoti to go back home back to Godhead? See, this is a very hypothetical question. Um, First thing, we are assuming that a person in Brahmajyoti uh, will be dissatisfied while staying in Brahmajyoti, so he's yearning to go back to a better place. It is not like that. So they are quite satisfied and happy there. But it is mentioned that sometimes Lord Shiva goes to Brahmajyoti to preach. So they do have that hope for actually going back. But uh, uh, unless they develop a desire to go to the spiritual world, they'll not go. And unless they come in touch with a pure devotee, they will not develop that desire to go to the spiritual world also. So it's a very hypothetical question. So yes, it is possible if they come in touch with Lord Shiva and accept his preaching, and then they may go back. Another question. But even those who get liberated, they have done some bhakti because of which they are liberated. This is a very valid point. Yes, but that bhakti is very, very meager, and that is very subservient to the path of jnana. So that is not capable of creating sufficient spiritual vasanas for them to hanker to go to the spiritual world. Yeah, that is just a very ritualistic, you can say, like secondary limb of their practice. So that is not good enough. Next question. Yeah. Any examples of demons by nature? Yeah, such people are not worth mentioning in Bhagavatam at all, because such people will not be killed by Krishna, and they will not go back. So yeah, there could be many. Okay. Yes, Mata, you can now. Okay, you did unmute yourself. Okay, I will I will uh, I will unmute you again. You can please ask.
Prabhuji, in while explaining the two types of jnanis, you explained that the type of jnanis who have some faith in Krishna and Krishna's form, they go to Brahmajyoti.
Correct.
I was confused, like those who have some faith in Krishna's form, how they achieve with something which is impersonal.
Okay, so uh, okay, this is a good question. No, I mean, there is another. Before I take your question, Mataji, there is a misconception. Uh, one devotee is telling, last week I did mention that Muktas fall down from Brahmajyoti because of their imagined superiority. No, I never mentioned that. That is a misunderstanding of what I spoke. I said that imagined superiority, um, if they had reached Brahmajyoti, then they would be considered Siddhas. They would not be considered as Vimukta Manina or imagined superiority. They don't. I mentioned that they fall down from their position of being a Jivan Mukta and not a person who had reached Brahmajyoti. So that's a misconception. Okay. So now your question is that why would they want to, if they accept the form of Krishna to be real, why would they want to go to Brahmajyoti, right? Okay, I mean, See, uh, 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 okay, I will just add a slide and just to make. I think I remember discussing this before, but still, um, so we are um, just acceptance of Krishna's form does not make one into a pure devotee, right? So they need to have sufficient agyata. Otherwise, karma yogis also accept the personal form of the Lord. Jnana yogis also accept the personal form of the Lord. Ashtanga yogis also accept they have to accept the personal form of the Lord. So accepting personal form does not mean that they wish to merge into it, that they wish to attain the personal form. Like say for example, we do see many people, uh, you know, um, who their father may be having a business and they wish to join that business, but they will still just to get an engineering degree, they will do engineering because they don't, because ultimately the you know the society uh, will look down upon them if they don't have a basic degree also. So they do believe, it's not that they think that this degree is false or this thing, but they do it. But after doing engineering degree, they do go into business, right? I know one of our brahmacharis, after doing engineering degrees, he went to study law. So I mean, it's not that he did not believe in engineering. He did believe in engineering, but his choice was law. So we are, for us it's very strange that how could you accept the personal form of the Lord and actually not want to establish a relationship with him. So yeah, we do exist in the existence of a shopkeeper, as a real person who can give us a commodity in return for the money that we pay him. But that does not, just because we accept his real existence, does not mean we wish to establish a relationship with him, right? So that much experience is not there. So similarly, a karma yogi, a jnana yogi, and ashtanga yogi, they do have only sufficient sukriti to accept Krishna as being a real personality who can accept their spiritual practices and give what they are aspiring for in return. That's what Bhagavad Gita says. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim gacchati. So a karma yogi accepts Krishna as yagya book over all the yagyas that I am performing. He is the personality who will accept this yagya and give me swarga in return. So he is accepting the personal form, but that does not mean he wants to establish a relationship with Krishna. Similarly, the Jnana Yogi, Tapo book, for all the tapasya that I am performing while practicing this Jnana Yoga, oh, he is the personality who is accepting the tapasya and he will give me liberation in return, right? Uh, and similarly, Ashtanga Yogi, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, that controller of this whole universe, this Paramatma whom I am worshipping, that is Krishna, he accepts and he worships the personal form. But a devotee only accepts the personal form, and not only that, he sees Krishna as Suhridam Sarvabhutanam, the greatest well-wishing friend of all living entities. Therefore, he is inspired to establish a personal relationship with Krishna. Whereas these other people, if they don't accept Krishna to be a person, then they cannot expect reciprocation from him. So their situation is described in Bhagavatam as Mogasha, Mogakarmano, Mogajnana Vichetasa. Rakshasim, Masurim, Cheva Prakritim, Mohinim, Chutam. So if you don't accept the personal form, then who is going to reciprocate with your sacrifices? An impersonal entity cannot reciprocate, right? So who is going to reciprocate with your tapasya that you are performing in with a desire to attain liberation? An impersonal entity cannot reciprocate. So therefore they accept the personal form of Krishna, but the, that acceptance has not flourished to such a level that they are inspired to establish a personal relationship with Krishna. So therefore, just because accepting the personal form does not necessarily um, mm, mean that the person is inspired to establish a personal relationship. That needs lot of agyat sukriti which they don't have. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. Very well.
Govind Ghosh Prabhu, I am unmuting you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Oh, like in this chart which you are showing now, where should we put Mayavadis in this?
Oh, Mayavadis will fall in this category. Just hold on. They will fall in this category. They are demons by nature.
Demons by
Because
nature.
yeah.
And in the previous one, Prabhuji, like pure Gyan with Bhakti and Gyan with without Bhakti and with Bhakti.
So
There.
they fall within this category of Shushka Gyan. Where did I draw it? Is it here? I drew that thing somewhere, right? Yeah, here. So they would probably fall within this category. Pure Gyan without any Bhakti. So they will not get any result. Actually.
But they are also accepting Lord's form to be material, or
no, that is this category. They are this category. So they don't fall.
They are not accepting the like actually. But what I
see, there are many categories of Mayavadis. They are innocent Mayavadis, and they are there are many crooked Mayavadis. So innocent Mayavadis may innocently reject the personal form of the Lord, thinking that it is material. So such people, yeah, they may at the most reach till the level of Jivan Mukta, but then they will again fall down. And but generally Mayavadis are not like that. You know, they outright reject the path of bhakti only, and they practice some kind of shushka gyan, which is just like beating empty husk. They will not get any result for them.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sureshwar Prabhu, I am unmuting.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Is it audible,
Haribol?
Is it audible, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
Prabhuji, it's not related to what we are discussing. I need some clarification.
Achha, it is not at all related to the subject matter which we are discussing.
No, I want some clarification related to this only.
Related to this, okay, yeah.
Prabhuji, like Atma is part of Paramatma, part and parcel of Paramatma.
Yeah.
Soul. We call it as a Atma.
Yeah,
and
but that has to be
yeah.
That has to be understood. What is the meaning of part and parcel? We will discuss that, but you can go ahead with your question.
Then it comes to Jivatma. Its material body is made up of 8 elements.
Correct.
Fire, ether, and all this plus mind.
Yeah.
So when we separate this Jivatma, Atma plus Jivatma. Jivatma has the mind, ego, and man, buddhi, ahankar, mind, intelligence, and ego.
I don't know what is the difference between Atma and Jivatma. I thought both are same only.
Yeah, that I want clarification, because it covers this mind, intelligence, and the ego. No, when the Atma leaves this body,
Uh-huh.
that Sukshma Sharir, it goes along with that. Along
Yeah,
with that
yeah.
mind, buddhi and ahankar. So
The
we say in soul, we say only soul. Why Jivatma? How to clarify that Jivatma? Atma and Jivatma both are same. But that
Yeah.
coverage is there. No, that is material and that is spiritual.
Yeah, but the covering is an imagined covering only. It is not real covering.
No, but it's there, no, Prabhuji. It's not, it's real only. As per that coverage only, he gets the next body. Whatever
Correct.
the intent, yeah. So it is
Actually, he
material
does
only,
not
yeah.
get the next body. The jiva, you may say, uh, uh, just like you may uh, you may get down, you may go to a city, then you may book an Ola cab and go from one place to another place. So you may get a you know you know, let's say, a Maruti Ola cab to pick you up, and then you go to one place, and then from the next place they book another Ola cab for you to go to the next place. So so there you get a maybe a uh, Toyota car, right? And then next place they book another Ola car for you, and then you may get a Mercedes car to pick you up and drop at the next place. So none of those three Ola cars belong to you, but you can imagine that it belongs to me. So even though you're literally sitting inside that Ola car, but in reality you have nothing to do with any of those cars, but you can still imagine that it is yours. So this is the first thing, one of the first questions that Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadev Goswami, to which uh, 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 the question he says is yad adatu mato brahman deharambosya dhatu bihi yadrichaya hetuna va bhavanto janate yata. So Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadev Goswami, this body is made of all kinds of dhatus, kapha, vata, pitta, and all those things. The soul is adhatu mato, it is not made of any matter. How did this relationship between the jiva and the body happen? So Shukadev Goswami says, Atmamaya mrite rajan parasyanubhavatmanah na ghateta artha sambandha swapna drashturivanjasa. He says, my dear Parikshit Maharaj, your question itself is wrong. He says, actually, the jiva does not develop a relationship with the body at all. There is no relationship between the body and the jiva. But this relationship is imagined by the jiva due to the avidya potency of Maya. He says this is like swapna drashtur ivanjasa. So just like if you are sleeping, okay, generally you get a dream of whatever your hankering was. You generally get a dream like that. Let's say that day night there was nothing to eat and you were very hungry and you slept, you drank 2-3 glasses of water and slept empty stomach. So in your dream you dreamt like eating chappan bhog, one after another. Very delicious dishes are coming and you're eating and eating and eating, and your stomach is so full, and then you're like, oh, my stomach is paining like that, and then you wake up from the dream, and you'll still feel hungry, right? What do you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So that is the point. He says that swapna drashtur ivanjasa, when the living entity wakes up from the dream, so till he wakes up, his experience of eating the chappan bhog is real. He's smelling, he's experiencing the fragrance of ghee, he's experiencing the fragrance of uh, you know uh, whatever sweet or savories, whatever. That is real. But the moment he wakes up from that sleep, the moment he comes out of that dream, he realizes that, oh, it was just a dream, right? So in reality, he has not eaten anything. He will still feel hungry. He will still think that, oh, I should maybe brush my teeth, freshen up quickly so that I can search something to eat, right? So even though he has eaten chappan bhog in his dream and his stomach was paining, but still, after he wakes up from that dream, he still feels hungry. So similarly, Parikshit Shukadev Goswami says, your question itself is wrong. There is no relationship that is established between the jiva and the body. It is only an illusion.
So
The
Prabhuji,
moment he,
Atma and Jivatma both are same.
first time I'm hearing that there is a difference between Atma and Jivatma. I thought it is
No,
all
no,
same.
because it is covered by these three material elements, mind, ego, what I'm to want.
Yeah, even in the conditioned state, Prabhu, the jiva is not covered. The jiva is not covered. It is just an imagination.
Why two words are given, Atma and Jivatma? Then
I have no idea. There are there is Krishna, there is Govinda. There are so many words given to indicate the same personality. I mean, so as far as I know, Atma means it is a class. So Atma can be a Jivatma or a Paramatma. So Atma as a class means a conscious entity. So Jivatma means that is not Paramatma, but he is a Jiva. And in the same category of Atma or conscious entity comes Paramatma. So Atma is like a class. Like for example, human beings. So within human beings, you can have like males and females. So like why male human being and female human being? Why not only human being? Because human being is a class, and male human being and two female human beings are two subclasses within the same class. So similarly, Atma is a class, and Jivatma and Paramatma are two classes of Atmas.
Prabhuji, this body, it is made up of 5 elements, and along with that 3 elements. The 3 elements should be remain in body only, not should not cover the Atma.
Yeah, it does not cover the Atma.
It doesn't cover the Atma.
The
But
Jiva,
it goes along with the Atma when the body leaves. Just it goes along with the Atma.
yeah, it just goes along with the Atma. It does not touch the Atma.
Okay.
It is only due to illusion the Jiva thinks that I have some connection with that subtle body and gross body. But in reality, there is no connection between the Jivatma and the gross body or the subtle body. So, liberation means to get liberated from the false conception that the Jivatma has something to do with gross matter or subtle matter. So, in reality, liberation does not mean liberation from gross body or subtle body. In reality, liberation means to get liberated from the false conception that I am gross body or I am subtle body. So that is liberation.
False conception is to be rectified. That's all.
Yeah,
That is
yeah,
made up of this right conception.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, brother.
Okay, so I few more chat box questions I saw. Did you answer how long does the jiva stay, and if it does not come back, where does it go? How long? I presume that you are telling how long the jiva stays in Brahmajyoti. I mean, that's just now we read Yat Gatvan and Nivarteta, one who goes there does not come back. So where is the question of how long staying? He stays there only, right? So, and then next question. Jarasandha was envious of Krishna. Is he a demon? If yes, does he fall under the category of nature? Uh, Jarasandha was killed in the presence of Krishna, and I presume he must have attained Brahmajyoti. So he probably was not a demon by nature, because he did die seeing Krishna in the presence of Krishna. So he must have attained a higher destination. So So I don't think he was a demon by nature. Probably Garga Samhita or some other books must talk about the previous past life of Jarasandha, how whether he got cursed or something. He must have been cursed. I can check and get back. Okay, so I think we took a long time discussing this one subject matter, but I think it was relevant. I hope uh, not many devotees felt really bored having this discussion. So, so this was about Mukti Katha and how the talks about liberation can actually uh, be detrimental to one's progress in bhakti. Now, we will come to the third obstacle, which is attachment to serving Lakshmi and Narayan. Okay, let's read about that. We have another 5-6 minutes time, so I think we have taken sufficient questions. I will not take more questions now, but we will just read a few slides and get this topic started so that we can continue next time. I'm not going to talk anything about Mukti Katha, so which means next time there won't be any recap. We are directly, after chanting the verse, we will directly start with this theme of Api Tyaktva Lakshmi Patiratim Ito Vyomanayani. So how one should give up the attachment to serving Lakshmi and Narayan, because it will lead one to Vaikuntha, like that. So he says, Raghunath Das Goswami further writes, Api Tyaktva Lakshmi Patiratim Ito Vyomanayani. Give up even the attachment for Narayana, the Lord of Lakshmi. He goes as far as saying that worship of God with awe and reverence is bad because it will take you to Vaikuntha. Of course, in the beginning, right? In the beginning, he does not just say that, right? He says, Apityaktva Lakshmi Patiratim. He talks about form. He does not talk about mood of worship, because in Vaidhi Sadhana you do have to worship the forms in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, right? But it is the mood only has to be the mood of awe and reverence, but the form is only the form of Radha and Krishna. So basically, here he is telling Apityakva Lakshmi Pati Ratim. Don't be attached to worshipping the forms of Lakshmi Narayan. He does not just talk about worshipping in the mood of awe and reverence, because that is what we are supposed to do while we are at the stage of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, right? So why does he say that worshipping Lakshmi Pati is bad? What is wrong with Vaikuntha? Right? What is wrong with Vaikuntha? Krishna in his form of Narayana is there in Vaikuntha. There is order there. There is law there, right? But when devotees of Krishna find themselves there, they feel ill at ease, right? There is perfect law and order there, but then you don't feel very comfortable, right? In the second part of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Sanatan Goswami describes how Gopakumar went to Vaikuntha, right? So now we will discuss about the story of Gopakumar very briefly in our next session. I don't want to start a new discussion here. So we still have about 4 minutes. Any final comments, discussions before we wind up for the day? Because I don't want to start this new discussion again. So if there are any final comments before we end today's discussion, I'll wait for a minute or so to see. If not, we will wind up for the day. Okay. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your participation. I'm sorry we could not cover a lot of portions today. but still I hope that what we discussed was relevant and at least some of you found it a little bit useful. So next week, oh yeah, good. Actually, next Tuesday, I cannot, we cannot have class because next Tuesday we have a very important function at home. So, which will take the whole day. So I won't be able to take the class on Tuesday. So maybe we could do it on Sunday, on Monday, one day before, if possible. If it is okay with you, we could complete the Manasiksha discussion on Monday only. If not, we will have to take it on Friday. So what I'll do is, you can please send me a WhatsApp message, personal WhatsApp message, as to whether you would prefer Monday or Friday. So, I mean, yeah, if you could do that, then yeah, just please send. Don't type it in the chat box. You can just send me a WhatsApp and let me know whether you would prefer it on a Monday or a Friday, and then we will accordingly do it. So thank you all very much for your patient listening. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Pad ki jai, Srila Bhakti Vigyan Goswami Maharaj ki jai, Shri Manasiksha ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much.